Do you want to see your picture in the dictionary next to the entry for Logic Detective? Then hit like and subscribe. I guarantee you will be famous, or perhaps you will not. In my last video, I pointed out that a good citizen like you sometimes reasons in terms of categories and their relations, and sometimes reasons in terms of whole sentences or propositions and their relations. We will now set out on our extended investigation of categorical reasoning, as invented by the great logic detective Aristotle. But there is one preliminary thing we must explore before we get to the technical parts of Aristotle's system. Now, you know that I like you, my inquisitive friend, and I would not ever intentionally lead you astray, so I want you to believe me that the topic we must investigate promises to be as exciting as watching the paint dry on the walls of your newly decorated apartment in the luxurious and modern Eileen apartment building, which is to say that the topic promises to be not in the least exciting. Even so, I am here to tell you that it truly contains mysteries and excitement enough for a lifetime. You are now curious as to what this topic may be, are you not? I will tell you, and I will not lie, because I am a logician. Today, we must talk about how to define terms. As I was saying, you may believe that definitions are an unimportant subject and as dry can be, and not dry in a good way, like a fresh pair of socks hot out of the dryer, but dry like the paper on which were written love letters to someone you forgot about years ago. It turns out, however, that many disputes people have are not genuine disputes, but just disagreements about what words mean, so that once we come to an understanding about the meanings of the words we are using, the disagreements disappear. This is the first reason why knowing how to construct a good definition matters. As Socrates believed, if we can define a term, we can then say that we know the essence of that thing, and that would be knowledge indeed. Are you going to disagree with a logic detective as great as the great Socrates? I thought not. But there is a second reason for learning some basic definitional theory, and this is directly tied to Aristotle's categorical logic. You will remember that Aristotle's categorical logic is a logic of categories and their relations, and can be used to analyze arguments like, all logic detectives are brilliant people. You are a logic detective. Therefore, you are a brilliant person. Now, I ask you, what categories are used in this argument? There are three of them. First is the category of logic detectives. Second is the category of brilliant people. Third is a category that has only one member, you. Logicians sometimes call such a category a singleton category, which is a fancy way of saying that it is a category with only one thing in it. In this case, it is the category of people identical to you. Of course, your fine logical detective's brain has already jumped to what I am going to say next. We need to think about what kinds of things can be categories. For example, red is not a category, although things that are red is a category. Quickly is not a category, although things that move quickly is a category. To run is not a category, but things that run is a category. The words the and or and not are not categories. Can you see any pattern in these lists? Yes, you can see a pattern. Categories are always nouns or noun phrases. Categories can be nouns like dogs and cats, but can also be noun phrases like the candy in the store window and citizens who have lost money playing in Big Ear Benny's floating crap game. Now, we need a word for all of these categories, so we will call them all terms. In categorical logic, a term is a noun or a noun phrase, and so we may say that categorical logic is a logic of terms and their relations. I would be willing to bet a couple of Franklins that you have never really looked at definitional theory. What is definitional theory, you ask? Definitional theory studies all of the ways in which a definition may be good or bad. If I define jelly, as not peanut butter, I would be correct, but it is still not a good definition. It is technically something called definition by negation, and definition by negation is usually not very helpful. After all, not only is jelly not peanut butter, it is also not horseradish, or a car tire, or an alien planet made of green cheese. Of course, sometimes definition by negation is unavoidable. For example, you may not realize this, but Big Ear Benny always wears a hat because he is as bald as an eagle. Now, try to define the word bald. If you say that bald means being hairless, isn't that a definition by negation? And yet it is a good definition, just as saying that a bachelor is an unmarried man. But I digress. My point, my attentive friend, is that since Aristotle's categorical logic uses terms, we need to learn some definitional theory relating to terms. But note this well. We will only talk about how to define terms, not other parts of speech. A term, as we have just learned, is a noun or a noun phrase. There are all sorts of other words which do not fall within these limits. There are words like verbs and adjectives and adverbs, which are always getting unwary citizens into trouble as well. But they require different treatment when it comes to definitional theory. So we will not discuss them at this time. No, we are only interested in how to define terms, because terms form the basic building blocks of categorical logic. Let us for now consider the category or term golden retriever. Suppose I define this term like this. Golden retriever means any of a breed of medium-sized retrievers having a flat, moderately long golden coat. This definition is from the great Merriam-Webster dictionary. Do you believe that this is a fine, upstanding, trustworthy dictionary? Good. I am glad that you have high regard for Merriam-Webster, for it is indeed a fine dictionary. But do you think that this is a good definition of golden retriever? I would bet another Franklin that you do. But it is not a good definition for our purposes. What makes a good definition good anyway? Well, a good definition of a term must have two properties. It must pick out all of the thing being defined, and it must not include things that are not the same type as the thing being defined. To put it in technical terms, a good definition is one in which the definiens, the part that does the defining, picks out all of the definiendum, which is the word being defined. Another way of saying this is that a good definition of a term must not be too narrow or too broad. Let us think about the first requirement first. Does Merriam-Webster's definition pick out all golden retrievers, or is it too narrow? Are all golden retrievers medium-sized dogs that have flat, moderately long golden coats? Are there any golden retrievers who lack any of these properties? It turns out that there may be many golden retrievers who do not fit this definition. For example, a golden retriever puppy. It is a golden retriever, but not yet medium-sized. How about an unusually small or large golden retriever? It would still belong to the breed. Or, what if we shaved my dog Marlowe? He would then lack a moderately long coat. Or even worse, what about a golden retriever with alopecia or mange? There are also golden retrievers that are a very pale cream or dark reddish gold, so that someone might not consider them to be golden. Merriam-Webster's definition is generally good, but it fails because it does not pick out all golden retrievers. We shall say that the definition is too narrow, but is it also too broad? I am very sad to report to you, my friend and fellow citizen, that it is indeed too broad because it also describes some dogs that are not golden retrievers. Just imagine a mutt that is medium-sized and has lots of retriever ancestry and also happens to be golden in color. It would not qualify as a golden retriever, but it would fit the definition. But perhaps you think that I am fooling you and just picked a bad example. Okay then, let us try something even simpler. Let us try to define the word cup. Here is what Merriam-Webster has to say. Cup means an open, usually bowl-shaped drinking vessel, Now, you and I both know what a cup is, but this definition does not capture the term, does it? The word usually in that definition tells you that not all cups are bowl-shaped, so saying that they are is not helpful. Are all cups drinking vessels? Nope. A measuring cup is not a drinking vessel. This dictionary definition is both too broad because it includes things that are not cups, and too narrow because it does not include all cups. Please understand that I am not berating the fine people at Merriam-Webster. They did not set out to write definitions that would satisfy Aristotle or logic detectives like ourselves. Such a dictionary is intended to be of practical use, not philosophical. Of course, this means that merely looking up the meaning of a term in such a dictionary is usually not going to be enough to satisfy our more stringent philosophical requirements. Would you like to see a definition of a term that is neither too narrow nor too broad? I can give you an example, but I should note that this example, like most such examples, is drawn from mathematics. Anyway, here is an example of a good definition of the term triangle. Triangle means a polygon with exactly 3 sides. This definition picks out all triangles and only triangles. Here's what I want you to take away from this discussion. A term is a noun or a noun phrase, and a good definition of a term will pick out all and only things of that type. That is, a good definition is one in which the definiens, the part that does the defining, picks out all of the definiendum, which is the word being defined. A bad definition is like a bad police sketch. Too broad, and you accuse innocent citizens. Too narrow, and the guilty man walks free. Logic detectives cannot afford either mistake. In this city, words matter. Categories matter. Definitions matter. A careless definition can wreck an argument before the investigation even begins. Remember that, my friend. In logic, words are evidence. Be sure to get the definitions right, because in this way, Aristotle keeps everybody honest.